Hello, recording.
Welcome to Reminiscence and Curds, your audio journal of music, memory, and everything in between. I'm Dainty, and on this episode, Will's memory is tied to Wild Wild West by Will Smith. Yeah, no, I wish it was Will Smith's story, but no, it's another Will. So this happened during summer of 1999, which was basically the last innocent summer before Y2K panic set in. Will was 14 years old, his best friend Conrad and Will had developed what they thought was a foolproof scheme to watch every single R-rated movie that Blockbuster Video had to offer. Now, you have to understand this was before streaming, before Netflix, before you could just click a button and watch literally anything. If you wanted to see an R-rated movie as a kid back then, you had three options: sneak into a theater, have a cool older sibling, or somehow convince the person at Blockbuster that you were, in fact, a very short 30-year-old man. Will and Conrad had tried option 3 exactly once. Will put on his dad's oversized suit jacket, drew a mustache on his face with his mom's eyeliner, and walked into Blockbuster trying to rent The Matrix. The cashier, who they'd seen there a million times, just stared at Will. He didn't say anything for a few seconds, then he goes, "Dude, I literally helped you find the Sandlot last week." Will tried to deepen his voice and claim he was mistaking him for someone else, but the eyeliner mustache started sweating off his face, so that was that. Conrad had a different idea. His older brother, Francis, was 19 and had his own Blockbuster membership card. Francis was really into his garage band, Fibrous Tissue, which he swore was going to be huge even though they only knew how to play 3 Blink-182 songs and one they had written themselves about pizza. Conrad's plan was simple. They'd borrow Francis's membership card while he was at band practice, rent whatever movies they wanted, watch them, return them, and put the card back before Francis ever noticed. What could possibly go wrong? Everything could go wrong. Well, it started well enough. They waited until Francis left for practice one Thursday afternoon, located his wallet on his dresser, and took the precious Blockbuster card. The card was bent and had what appeared to be old salsa on one corner, but it was valid and that's what mattered. They rode their bikes to Blockbuster, wall-to-wall movies, the smell of popcorn, the carpeted floor with that weird geometric pattern, Will Smith, Wild Wild West, playing over the speakers. They went to the action section. Conrad grabbed The Matrix. Will grabbed Fight Club. Then they got greedy and added American Pie, Austin Powers, The Spy Who Shagged Me. And because they were 14-year-old boys with no impulse control, eyes wide shut, which they'd heard had adult content but had no idea what it was actually about. They approached the counter trying to act casual, like they rented R-rated movies all the time. The cashier was a woman who was probably in her 50s and had the energy of someone who had worked at Blockbuster for approximately 400 years and had seen everything. She scanned Francis's card without looking up, scanned the first movie, the second, the third, then she paused, looked at the remaining 2 movies, looked at the card, looked at them, back to the movies. "You boys know these are all rated R, right?" she asked. Conrad did not miss a beat. "Yes, ma'am. Our brother couldn't come in today. He's got mono." Will still don't know why he chose mono of all the diseases. The woman raised one eyebrow. "Uh-huh. And your brother is?" She glanced at the card. "Francis Brown?" "Yes, ma'am," they said in unison, probably too quickly. She sighed. "Fine, but tell Francis he's got late fees from 3 weeks ago, $12. They nodded, grabbed their movies, and got out of there before she could change her mind. When they got to Conrad's basement, they discovered the first problem. Francis's late fees were from movies he had apparently never returned. Wild Wild West, Big Daddy, and a documentary about World War II that Francis had needed for a history class and then presumably forgotten about. This meant that when Francis checked his wallet later and found his Blockbuster card missing, he would also probably get a call from Blockbuster about those late fees, which meant he would know someone had used his card, which meant they were dead. Not literally. They were already committed. They popped in the Matrix, and for 2 glorious hours, they forgot about their impending doom. By the time Saturday rolled around, they had watched all 5 movies and they had a new problem. They needed to return them before Francis noticed they were on his account. Band practice was Sunday afternoon, so they had a narrow window. Saturday morning, they rode back to Blockbuster, ready to drop the movies in the night return slot and be done with it. Except the night return slot was jammed, completely stuck. There was a handwritten sign that said, "Out of order, please return inside." Inside meant seeing the same woman again, who definitely knew they were not Francis Brown's brothers. She might ask questions about those late fees they had promised to tell Francis about. They stood outside Blockbuster for a few minutes, debating their options. They could just leave the movies on the sidewalk. They could mail them. They could move to Canada and start new lives. Finally, Conrad said, "We're just going. Act natural. Return them. Leave." So they did. Walked in, marched up to the counter, and there was the same woman. "Well," she said, "if it isn't the Brown brothers." They laughed nervously and handed her the stack of movies. She scanned them one by one. Then she looked at her computer screen, then back at them. "Interesting," she said. "Says here these were rented on Francis's card, but Francis called yesterday asking why he had 5 R-rated movies on his account that he did not rent." Conrad made it sound like a deflating balloon. "And he asked us to investigate whether his card had been stolen." She continued, clearly enjoying everything. They stood there frozen, waiting for the police to arrive or their parents to be called or whatever happened to kids who committed Blockbuster fraud. But I told Francis it must have been a computer error. These things happen. The system's been glitchy all week. She finished scanning the movies. "No late fees. You're all set." They stared at her. "Thank you," Conrad squeaked. "You're welcome. Tell your brother to take care of those other late fees though. $12 adds up." They practically ran out there, Will said. Here's the thing though, they weren't done yet because in their panic about returning the movies, they had forgotten to put Francis's Blockbuster card back in his wallet, and Francis's band practice was in 2 hours. Will said the biked to Conrad's house, speedily burst into his room, and there was Francis standing at his dresser, holding his wallet, looking confused. "Have you guys seen my Blockbuster card?" Conrad's face went through about 7 different expressions in 2 seconds. Then he put out an answer. "Yeah, dude, it fell behind your dresser. I saw it last week when I dropped a quarter back there." Francis looked at the dresser. It was pushed against the wall. There was no way anything could fall behind it without moving it. Conrad walked over, made a big show of trying to squeeze his hand behind it, then pretended to struggle. "It's really wedged in there. Here, help me move it." Will jumped in. The 3 of them shifted the dresser out of the wall. Conrad pulled the card from his pocket while they were all focused on the gap behind the dresser and went, "Oh, here it is." He handed it to Francis. Francis looked at the card, still slightly confused, but also already kind of forgetting about it. Weird. "Thanks, man." He grabbed his guitar and left for practice. Conrad and Will collapsed on his floor, absolutely exhausted from the stress. "We're never doing that again," Will said. "Absolutely never," Conrad agreed. Will said to me they did it 3 more times before the end of summer. The funny thing is, he says, years later, he ran into the Blockbuster woman at a grocery store. She recognized him immediately. "Brown brothers," she said, grinning. He apologized profusely, told her he felt bad about it for years. The woman laughed and said, "Are you kidding? That was the most entertainment I got that whole summer. I knew exactly what you were doing. Francis came in once a week like clockwork. You two looked nothing like him." Will then asked her why she helped them. She said, "I was 14 once, and you could have rented way worse movies. At least you had taste." Will says, looking back now, the whole thing was absurd. We risked getting grounded for months. We nearly gave ourselves heart attacks over returning VHS tapes, and we went through an elaborate heist just to watch movies we could have probably watched edited on cable a few months later. I miss that feeling sometimes. I miss the carpeted floors and the candy at the checkout and the anxiety of trying to rewind a tape all the way before returning it. I miss riding bikes across town on a mission that felt important just because we decided it was. Mostly though, I miss the version of friendship where you and your best friend would commit minor fraud together just to watch Reeves dodge bullets in slow motion. Those were the days, man. Those were the days. Even I miss those days. I miss the days where we had to go rent tapes to watch movies. And this story reminds me of when I rented Save the Last Dance. Gosh, I think I overwatched that movie before I returned the tape. I was hoping it was still playing good by the time I returned it. And yes, Will says they eventually did start a fight club Conrad wanted after watching Fight Club. It lasted exactly one fight before Conrad's mom heard them thumping around in the basement and shut the whole thing down. But that's a different story. I'll be looking forward to that story, Will, or any other story you may have. That's where we'll leave it for today. Thank you, Will. Thank you so much for this story, because when I received it, I laughed so much. I want to thank every single one of you for tuning in, sending messages, and sharing your stories. This show exists because of you. Keep the conversations going, keep the memories alive, and until next time, may your memories always rewind to laughter.
Thanks for rewinding with us. If a song unlocked something in you, follow the show, pass it along. And if you've got a moment worth remembering, share it at remingchords@gmail.com. The next memory we play just might be yours.